Hello, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Today, we have another story from Pottermore Wizarding World, and this time I will tell you the backstory of the Dursley family. From Snape's memories, we know a little about what happened to the older sister after Lily received her much-anticipated letter from Hogwarts. However, young Severus had no idea that Petunia held a grudge against their parents because she believed they loved Lily more due to her magical abilities. Because of this, Petunia left her hometown and moved to London, where she got a job in an office. It was there she met Vernon, whom she later married. Young Vernon met all her requirements and was a very ordinary young man, dreaming of owning a house and a new car. Petunia was quite satisfied. The only problem, of course, was the story with her wizard sister. But Vernon, after hearing Petunia's confession, assured her that this fact would not affect their relationship. Sometime later, the promising groom met Lily and her husband James, and the meeting went terribly. The young people only exchanged barbs. For instance, Vernon casually asked James what kind of car he had, to which James described his racing broom model. Vernon immediately assumed that wizards lived on unemployment benefits, and James vividly told him about the gold in his Gringotts vault. The situation heated up to the limit. Vernon thought they were mocking him and declared that the Dursleys were leaving the restaurant immediately. Lily was upset, and James, trying to comfort her, promised to try and make amends with Vernon at the next opportunity. However, Vernon was adamant and refused to talk to James, and Petunia didn't want Lily to be her bridesmaid. By the way, they didn't attend the Potters' wedding either. Some time passed, and Petunia was quite happy with how her life was turning out. She moved into her husband's house, where there were no more surprises like disappearing plates and bouncing forks, and Vernon was a very normal person, which suited Petunia perfectly. The last message from Lily was about Harry's birth, a letter Petunia tore up and threw away, leaving it unanswered. The sisters never reconciled. You know how events unfolded from there. After Lily and James's death, Harry lived in his aunt's house. Now, a little about how Rowling chose names for her characters. She says she came up with the name Vernon very quickly, choosing the most ordinary and common option. As for Petunia, the author admits she never liked the name and gave it to all negative characters in her games with her sister. Later, Rowling revealed she got the name Petunia from a film where a character with that name left a person in trouble without help. After Harry stayed in her house, Petunia did everything possible to stop any talk about Lily and James once and for all. This was not only because of the quarrel, but also because of a sense of guilt, as Petunia deep down understood that Lily genuinely loved her, and she never even responded to her last letter, simply tearing it up. Vernon didn't know that deep down, Petunia had always wanted and hoped to show signs of magic and be accepted into Hogwarts herself. Perhaps this explains why Petunia treated Harry the way she did. Through constant criticism, she drowned out her sense of bitterness from having once pushed her own sister away. Vernon's dislike for Harry is undoubtedly due to Harry's strong resemblance to James, whom Vernon never forgave. The truth about Lily and James was carefully hidden by the Dursleys, and this lie was based on fear, understanding the power and danger of Voldemort, who caused Lily and James's deaths. According to J.K. Rowling, she invested in the Dursley family all the qualities she most disliked in people: a fixation on stereotypes, ignorance, and unwillingness to listen to others. The farewell scene with Harry becomes symbolic in a way. Perhaps Petunia realizes that she is seeing her sister's eyes for the last time, or maybe a long, suppressed feeling of love for her sister has awoken in her heart after so many years. Later, readers admitted to Rowling that they expected more from Petunia in this scene, to which the author responded that it was not in Petunia's nature to show her true feelings and admit she was ever wrong. Moreover, Petunia behaved here as she had throughout all the previous books. The story of Vernon and Petunia before the events in Godric's Hollow reveals their fears and prejudices. We see how their hatred of magic was formed and how it influenced their attitude towards Harry. This explains many of their actions. But even with this knowledge, the films did not show all aspects of the Dursleys' lives. There are moments that make their characters even deeper and more interesting. Now let's look at 7 facts about the Dursleys that didn't make it into the films. These facts will help us better understand their characters and actions. Fact number 1. Physical abuse. In the movies, the Dursley family is portrayed as unpleasant people who psychologically humiliate and oppress Harry. They call him names, ignore him, and force him to do heavy housework. These scenes create an image of cruel and unfair treatment, but they do not show the full extent of the violence Harry suffered in the books. In J.K. Rowling's books, the picture is even darker. The Dursleys resort to not only psychological pressure, but also physical violence. Vernon Dursley often loses his temper and resorts to using his fists. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry recalls, Aunt Petunia often chased him with a broom, and Uncle Vernon tried to hit him. Such treatment leaves a heavy mark on Harry's life. Constant fear and anxiety become his constant companions. He learned to dodge blows and tried to stay away from Uncle Vernon to avoid physical pain. Harry knew that any disobedience or even simple disagreement could lead to another outburst of his uncle's rage. An example from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is particularly telling. Uncle Vernon, finding out that Harry was not going to be quiet during an important guest's visit, shouted, "If you ruin this evening even for a second, I will lock you in your room and not let you out until the end of the school year." This shows that Vernon was ready to take extreme measures just to keep Harry under control. Physical abuse became a routine for Harry. He got used to the bruises and bumps that accompanied his daily life. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Rowling writes, Harry had to be constantly on guard to avoid getting hit by Uncle Vernon. This adds depth to his character and explains why he was so eager to escape to Hogwarts. Fact number 2. They cared for Harry only for their own protection. The Dursley family did not care for Harry out of kindness or family attachment. They took him into their home only because it ensured their own safety. Dumbledore left Harry on their doorstep with a letter explaining Lily's sacrifice. This sacrifice created magical protection that guarded not only Harry, but also those who lived with him. Petunia, though she did not understand magic, realized that the forces that killed her sister could harm her family, so she agreed to take in her nephew, not out of love for Lily, but for the protection of her husband and son. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore writes, "Lily and James Potter are dead. Lily gave her life to save Harry. This act provided him protection as long as he stays with his blood relatives." Petunia's desire to protect her family becomes evident when we see her behavior. She always kept Harry at a distance, not allowing him to forget his place in the family. Vernon supported this cruelty because he was also interested in the safety of his family. They never showed him real care or love. Harry felt this coldness every day. He was not allowed to sleep in a normal room, and they fed him poorly. He was a stranger in his own home. However, he did not understand why they kept him around. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore explains, "Your aunt knows about the protection your presence gives her. As long as you can call her house your home, you will be safe." This protection allowed Harry to grow up, but also made his life unbearable. He was forced to live with people who hated him only because it was necessary for his survival. Petunia, although she took him into the house, could never overcome her aversion to magic and everything related to it. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Petunia says, "You're as strange as your parents, and I don't want to see that strangeness in my house." This shows her true attitude towards her nephew. She took him in only out of fear and necessity, not out of love or compassion. Fact number 3. They did not feed Harry for 3 days. In the movie Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the Dursleys punish Harry by locking him in his room and putting bars on his window. This punishment is a response to his magical abilities that cause trouble for the family. However, the real cruelty of the Dursleys is revealed in the book, where the punishment was much harsher. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry was locked up for 3 days with barely any food. The only food he was given was utterly insufficient. Petunia brought only a piece of toast and water. This period became a real test for Harry, as he not only suffered from hunger, but also was in complete isolation. The Dursleys' love for food and their elaborate dinners starkly contrast with how they treated Harry. The house was always full of delicious food for Vernon and Dudley. Petunia cooked lavish meals for her family, showing her care and love through food. For Harry, however, they used food as a means of punishment. When Harry first arrives at the Weasley house, he is astonished at how differently they treat food and him. Molly Weasley greets him with a huge pie and lots of goodies. This underscores the contrast between life with the Dursleys and the warmth he found in his new family. Harry finally feels that he is needed and cared for. Punishment by starvation highlights the cruelty and indifference of the Dursleys. In the book, Rowling writes, "Uncle Vernon locked him in the room and put bars on the window. The only food was a piece of dry toast." This shows how far they were willing to go to keep Harry under control. 3 days of hunger and isolation left an indelible mark on Harry. He realized he could not rely on fairness and kindness from his relatives. This experience further fueled his desire to leave the Dursleys' house and return to Hogwarts, where he felt safe and loved. Fact number 4. Petunia wrote to Dumbledore. Petunia Dursley always had a complicated relationship with the magical world and her sister Lily. She considered magic strange and dangerous, which was especially noticeable after Lily received her letter from Hogwarts. Petunia, being an ordinary girl, felt envy and resentment, as her sister possessed unique abilities that she did not. When Lily received the letter of admission to Hogwarts, Petunia could not contain her emotions. Her envy and resentment reached their peak. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore reveals that Petunia wrote him a letter asking to be taken to Hogwarts. She desperately wanted to be part of the world that accepted her sister. "I know your answer will be no, but I must try. I too want to study at Hogwarts," she wrote. When Lily found this letter, her heart ached for her sister. She did not know how to help Petunia, as magical abilities cannot be shared or transferred. This moment shows that Petunia was not always hostile to magic. Once, she wanted to be part of this world with Lily. However, Dumbledore's refusal left a deep scar in her heart. Dumbledore's refusal only intensified her aversion to the magical world. She could not forgive wizards for rejecting her. This moment was key in forming her attitude toward Harry. She saw in him a reminder of her disappointment and inadequacy. Petunia could not forgive her sister for being special, and Harry became for her the embodiment of this bitter memory. This story shows that at the core of Petunia's cruel attitude towards Harry are deep personal wounds. She could not cope with her feelings of resentment and envy, which made her cruel and cold. However, this moment also adds complexity to her character. Petunia is not just a villain, she is a person with a vulnerable and broken heart. Lily, on the other hand, always loved her sister. She wanted Petunia to be happy and feel part of her life. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, we see Lily writing a letter to Sirius, mentioning that she received a vase from Petunia for Christmas. Petunia sent us a vase. It was unexpectedly nice, Lily writes. This moment shows that despite everything, the sisters still maintained a connection. Fact number 5. They gave Harry trash. At Christmas, Harry, like other Hogwarts students, eagerly awaited presents. For him, this was especially important as he had never received real gifts before. At Hogwarts, friends and the Weasley family started giving him presents, which was new and surprising for him. But even here, the Dursleys did not miss an opportunity to show their contempt. The first Christmas presents from the Dursleys were a shock for Harry. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, he receives a 50-pence coin from them. It was so ridiculous and humiliating that Harry couldn't help but feel disappointed. Getting such a trifle on a holiday when everyone around him received something meaningful and pleasant was a real blow to his self-esteem. In the following years, the situation did not improve. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry received an old napkin from the Dursleys. This was another example of their complete indifference. They didn't even try to pretend to care about him. Another gift was a toothpick, which he received in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. These gifts were not just useless. They showed how little Harry meant to his relatives. The Dursleys' gifts were a symbol of their contempt. They wanted to show that Harry was nothing to them. The effort they put into sending these items to Hogwarts only intensified their cruelty. They could have simply sent nothing, but they chose this way to humiliate Harry again. Harry felt this disdain every Christmas. While his friends received warm and caring presents, he got reminders of his loneliness and worthlessness. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, he gets another humiliating gift, a tiny handkerchief. This was yet another confirmation that the Dursleys would never change. These gifts became a reason for Harry's sadness and reflection. He understood that for the Dursleys, he would always remain an outsider. However, each such gift also reminded him of how different he was from them and how important it was to appreciate those who truly cared about him. Fact number 6. Dumbledore and the Dursleys. The scene from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where Dumbledore visits the Dursleys, became one of the most memorable in the book. Dumbledore came to Privet Drive to pick up Harry, and his presence immediately changed the atmosphere. The Dursleys were shocked and confused when the Great Wizard entered their home, disrupting their usual order. Dumbledore, politely but firmly, reproached the Dursleys for their treatment of Harry. He pointed out that they had not fulfilled their part of the agreement, to care for the boy as a family member. In the book, Dumbledore said, "You have not treated Harry as a son. He has seen nothing but neglect and often cruelty at your hands." These words sounded like a verdict, exposing all the cruelty and indifference with which the Dursleys treated Harry. The Dursleys' reaction was telling. Vernon Dursley, usually confident and loud, lost his speech. Petunia, trying to maintain her cold dignity, looked frightened and humiliated. Dudley, who was used to being the center of attention and getting everything he wanted, for the first time faced true power and authority. For readers, this scene was particularly satisfying. Throughout many books, they saw Harry's suffering in the Dursleys' house, and finally, justice prevailed. Dumbledore, a symbol of wisdom and goodness, put the cruel guardians in their place. It was a moment of triumph, not only for Harry, but also for everyone who followed his story. This scene also emphasized that Dumbledore was always on Harry's side. His words and actions showed that he deeply cared for the boy and was ready to defend him, even in the most unpleasant situations. Dumbledore did not just come to take Harry. He came to show the Dursleys that they were wrong and that their actions had consequences. Readers perceived this scene as long-awaited retribution for all the suffering Harry endured. It was a moment of catharsis, when finally evil was punished, at least morally. The Dursleys, used to their impunity, were forced to face the truth and acknowledge their guilt. Fact number 7. Dudley makes amends. In the final part of the series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, there is an unexpected moment. Dudley Dursley acknowledges his treatment of Harry. He, previously the main source of Harry's suffering, shows signs of remorse. In the book, Dudley says, "I don't think you're a waste of space, Harry." These words were a revelation for both Harry and the readers who did not expect such a turn. Dudley's acknowledgement was not his only act of kindness. Recall the scene where Dudley leaves a cup of tea at Harry's door. It was a small but significant gesture, showing that he was beginning to realize his mistakes. Remembering how Dudley usually treated Harry, this act looks like the first step towards redemption. Another important moment was when Dudley thanked Harry for saving him from the Dementors. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry saves his cousin from a Dementor attack, risking his own life. Later, Dudley realizes that without Harry, he could have died, and this changes his attitude towards his cousin. Dudley's behavior changes can be explained by his upbringing. Growing up in a family where Harry was considered a waste of space and treated with contempt, Dudley simply absorbed this attitude. Vernon and Petunia instilled in him that Harry was an unwanted guest, and this shaped his perception. But despite his parents' influence, Dudley was capable of change. Life circumstances and Harry's actions showed him another side of his cousin. He began to understand that Harry was not an enemy, but a person worthy of respect and gratitude. The scene where Dudley extends his hand to Harry before their final parting symbolizes reconciliation. This gesture speaks louder than any words. It shows that Dudley is ready to leave the past behind and start anew. Harry, despite all the grievances, accepts this gesture, which speaks of his magnanimity. Thank you for staying with me till the end. I hope this means you found it interesting. If so, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.